If you clicked on this video, I assume that you are somewhat familiar with Thelonious Monk's music. For those of you that aren't, you'll either love or hate his harmony. As for myself, I must confess that when I was initially getting into jazz and heard Monk for the first time, I didn't know what to make of it. But the more I listened throughout the years, the more I started to like it. Today, I'm a complete Monkaholic. But it was an acquired taste. So if you are new to Monk's music and your initial reaction is somewhat like mine was, give it some repeated listening over time because Monk was way ahead of his time and there is lots you can learn from his music. In this lesson, I'm going to share several snippets of Monk transcriptions I've done, especially to see how I could adapt some of his unique chord voicings to the guitar. So without further ado, let's get started with one of my favorite Monk chords. And please stick with me because I am going to show you how to use all of them within several well-known standards. This first one, Monk played on the sixth measure of the bridge to Ruby My Dear. Let's listen to the excerpt which ends with the chord I'm referring to. So here is the chord as we would play it on guitar. This one's not a movable chord, so I'm going to play it in a different fingering that is movable. So if we're looking at it in the key of E, here in the fourth string, I have a G, and that would be the minor third. Here on the third string, I have a D, and that would be the flattest 7. And here on the second string, we have a D sharp. So is that the major 7th? But wait, do we have a minor 7th and a major 7th? Let me finish and I will tell you. On the first string, we have the 5th. So I recently posted a 2-part lesson on Ravel chords for guitar. If you watch the second part, you'll recall that I showed a major chord that had a minor 7th and a major 7th. In Monk's case, it is a minor chord with a minor 7th and major 7th. But what I went on to say in relation to the Ravel chord is that the origin of it is not based on functional harmony, but instead on chromatic harmony, which does not work the same way. That said, here the major 7th is really acting as an upper extension. In other words, it is a 21st, an adult chord. This is one of many examples that portray Monk among the pioneers to introduce concepts from 20th century classical composers in a jazz context. So, for those of you still with me, now that we have a name for this chord, let me show you how I might use it over several standards. So you can reharmonize any minor 7th chord that has the 5th on the top melody note with this minor 7 21st chord. For example, let's take Softly as in a Morning Sunrise. How about Yesterdays? How about Easy to Love, the very first chord? How about a bossa? How insensitive. Now let's take the same voicing as an E minor 7 21st and move it up a half step in the key of E. If we move it up, now we have an E major 7 flat 13. So on the fourth string, I have a G sharp, which is the third. On the third string, I have a D sharp, which is the major 7th. On the second string, I have the root E. And then on the first string, I have a C, which is the flatted 13. And even though it has a major 7, the crazy fact is that we can use it in place of an altered dominant. And it resolves beautifully a perfect fifth down. Now, let me show you how I would use it along with the minor 7 21st over summertime. And listen carefully because it is all about tension and release. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You can use any dissonance and make it sound good if you know how to resolve it. And that is achieved primarily by using smooth voice leading during the transition to the resolution chord. And we're still not done with this chord shape. There is a third function we can assign to it. If we go back and look at the E minor 7 21st and analyze it from the perspective of its relative major, we have a G major flat 6. So, if we look at it with the root here in G, on the fourth string, we have the root, of course. On the third string, we have the perfect fifth. On the second string, we have an E flat, and that's the flatted 6. And on the top, we have the third, which is a B. So some of you might be wondering, why am I calling it a G major flat 6 and not a G major flatted 13? Well, that's because there is no 7th. And for something to be called a 13, it has to be functioning as an extension of a chord that already has a 7th. So basically, the chord is root, third, fifth, and flat 6. And we can use it to reharmonize a major 7th or 6th chord with a third on top. But before I give you some examples, I want to introduce a couple of different monk chords, and then I'll use all of them together. This next one Monk played on measure 8 of Gallop's Gallop. So here's how we can play the chord on guitar. That's a 6-note voicing. Because it lacks a third, it can have a dominant or tonic tendency. Monk uses it over the tonic. Now, we can use this chord without playing all 6 strings, starting here. So on the 4th string, we would have a flatted 7. On the 3rd string, we would have the sharp 11. So we're in A flat here, which is where Monk originally played it. We have a G flat, and we have the D here, which is the sharp 11. We have an E flat, which is the 5th. And then we have the A flat on top. Here we have that minor second I was talking about earlier. And all of this is part of the Lydian dominant scale. Let's listen to another excerpt this time featuring the last 2 chords Monk played on the intro to Bright Mississippi. So this is how I would play it. These cluster-like voicings, especially featuring minor and major seconds between the 2 top voices, are very typical of Monk's style. Next, I want to show you how I might use these different voicings over a few standards. But before I do, I'd like to tell you about the special download I've prepared for this lesson, because we are barely scratching the surface here. It includes PDFs featuring examples and theory of 28 concepts. Yep, 28 concepts from Monk transcriptions in regular notation and tablature. Also included are MP3s with each example played. And you can download this info-filled study package for a very nominal contribution from jazzguitar.richiezellen.com/premium. And you will find a direct link in the info section down below. So I'm going to try to use several of these chords we've looked at here in these couple of standards I'm going to play. The first one that comes to mind is a bossa, Once I Love. Another one I like is Take the A Train. So what do you think? Did you learn something new? I'm curious to know your thoughts, so please be sure to leave me a comment. I know some of you may love these adult chords, but then again, others might have to acquire a taste for them, like I did. As usual, I appreciate your likes and welcome your questions. And if this is your first time on this channel and you enjoyed this lesson, please be sure to subscribe. I'm Richie Zellen, and I look forward to bringing you another info-filled lesson real soon. Until then, you know the drill. Practice, 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 rinse, and repeat. May peace be with you.